Freedom and Prosperity Radio. Hi, I'm Scott Lee. Welcome back. We're live at Freedom Fest. Staring across the table is John Taylor, president of Tertium Quids. If you recognize that name, you should. It's our sponsor for free markets and free people. Is that still true, John? Are we still?
Yes, we are still tangentially associated with both of those.
Both free markets and free people. Good. That's our goal then. That's still our
Yes.
Our idea. Now, you spoke here at Freedom Fest.
Yes, I did.
What did you speak on?
State sovereignty from a 10th Amendment perspective.
You know, I can't think of another perspective. Isn't that the only one and the true one? Isn't that where we should base it upon?
Well, actually, I think you could say that the Constitution established a limited government because when they were trying to get people to ratify the Constitution, they promised them that the federal government would have no powers other than the ones that were in the Constitution.
Enumerated.
Yeah. The 10th Amendment came back and was just kind of an extra effort to show
Reaffirming.
yes, we're going to
Yeah,
limit the government to these powers.
John, that's so 1787. I mean, how can we go? How can we go back to that? I
Yeah.
mean, that's really what we need to, though, to really establish free markets and free people again.
Well, unfortunately, freedom and fiscal responsibility are also seem to be so 1787, and I think the two may be related. In fact, that's how I ended my speech. I said that, we're going to have to make a decision as to how we go forward in this country. And there are particular reasons why you choose one economic system over the other or one political system over the other.
Right.
If you're trying to maximize individual liberty, then perhaps we need to go back to the Constitution as it was written in the Bill of Rights and the bulwarks of liberty that the founders put in place to maintain liberty over the long term.
You know, it's been a constant theme here as I've interviewed people today here at Freedom Fest is we're all in agreement on that, no question about it. But it seems to be we have a battle for the hearts and minds of the American people, once again, just to want and long for liberty and freedom.
You do, because the people who are Native Americans tend to take freedom for granted. A lot of times it's the immigrants who come to this country from like former Eastern European countries that have recently been, allowed some degree of liberty. And liberty to them is a breath of fresh air. I mean, and they try to warn us about the road we're going down because they've seen it before.
Yeah.
But no, we've got to do better job of educating our children. But I actually think that's going to take place here in the short run because we're bumping up against reality.
Yeah.
The progressives who've done everything they could do to dismantle the system the founders put in place, the progressives are very good at never letting stark reality interfere with a perfectly good theory. But the fact of the matter is we're broke.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is that's going to start showing itself in a number of ways. And we can either at that point decide, let's go back to the system that created the prosperity in the first place, or on the other hand, that kind of crisis can be the impetus for even more authoritarian governments.
Yeah, right. We're on the precipice, as
Right.
it were. Let's talk for a second about Virginia, because we have the Freedom and Prosperity agenda, and that's what we're going to be pushing, and you are going to be ahead of that heading into the General Assembly coming up. A lot of the things that we're pushing for, as well as property rights and other things, are all about, and some of them include this 10th Amendment and state sovereignty.
Well, the Freedom and Prosperity agenda, when we first put it together, you could look at the entire agenda and say every plank in that agenda was either to cap the growth of government, cut taxes, protect private property, which is key to maintaining freedom and liberty, or to put parents back in charge of their children's educations. So those were the only themes we really addressed in the Freedom and Prosperity agenda, and we did that for a good reason.
Because those things expand what we're talking about, freedom and prosperity. Exactly. So where do you think we're going to put a lot of our focus in this coming up in the General Assembly? We're going to be putting out a Freedom and Prosperity agenda that is people can view obviously at freedomandprosperityradio.com and tertiumquids.org.
Well, one of the things we're going to do back in 2007, we got a statute passed, a very, very good statute. In fact, we came out of that session all being fairly amazed at what good language the statute contained that completely reformed the eminent domain law of Virginia. It said that your property could no longer be taken for tax revenue enhancement, for job creation, for economic development. The state government couldn't take 100% of your property because they needed 10% of it for a road. They couldn't take your property because your neighbor's property was blighted. Your property had to be blighted before they could use that as an excuse. Unfortunately, ever since we got that passed in 2007, the Virginia Association of Counties, the Virginia Municipal League, the Metropolitan Planning Organizations, all three of those are completely taxpayer funded, I might point out. But they come in every single year and try to weaken the language we got back in 2007. So next year we're going to start trying to get a constitutional amendment passed that will contain much the same language. The virtue of a constitutional amendment is that it cannot be changed later without a vote of the people, and we don't think the people will ever vote to weaken their own property rights. Another big...
But we'll pay taxes to people who will.
Yes. We'll fund people who do things like that. But another thing is we want to eliminate Virginia's income tax. There are 9 states today that do not have an income tax, and we know that just by virtue of the fact that those states have already done it, that states that don't have an income tax have higher economic growth, they have higher job creation, I think right now our governor should be out on the road visiting places like California and telling the folks in Silicon Valley, your state's melting down. And your company and you personally are going to have to pick up the tab for this.
Yep, I know where you're going.
In Virginia, we are getting rid of the income tax. Why don't you move there?
Exactly.
And
that makes sense.
We've been saying this for months, but about 2 weeks ago, I was watching the evening news, and the media had found out that Governor Perry was in California. Governor Perry from Texas.
Lobbying.
And they found him and they said, Governor Perry, what are you doing in California? And he said, if you want to fish, you got to go where the fish are. So Governor Perry was there saying, Texas doesn't have a state income tax. Why don't you guys come there?
That's a good plan.
Yeah, it would be a great plan.
And this is our Freedom and Prosperity agenda. You can find more about it at tertiumquids.org or simply go to freedomandprosperityradio.com. Thanks, John. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
John Taylor, president of Tertium Quids. You want to hear the interview again? And you just might. It's found at freedomandprosperityradio.com.
Stay tuned to Freedom and Prosperity Radio. We'll be right back after a brief message from our sponsors.